Hey guys, this time is gonna be tournament of rackets, Radical Pro against Diadem Elevate Tour. I think this round is quite exciting. Those two rackets are quite similar to each other, similar specs, even similar flex style, I would say. Radical and Elevate are kinda on the stiffer side when it comes to feel and the response, meaning shorter dwell time, a bit more boost kick to the ball when you strike it. It's not my typical preference, but in some cases it can work pretty well. It depends how well the racket can take the strings and tension. So yeah, let's jump into it. Please subscribe, leave a comment, say hello, and it helps me a lot. So yeah, I'm excited that I'm finally unloading some of my content, and yeah, this time for real. Let's go. So like I said, Radical Pro and Elevate Tour are kinda on the stiffer side when it comes to the response. Quite opposite to their lighter siblings, Radical MP and Elevate Regular 305. Those two are much softer, and in my case it also produced more spin with the lighter, softer versions of those two frames. However, Radical Pro and Elevate Tour are more stable. Both are similarly demanding, similarly stable. I think my hands are faster with the Elevate Tour. Even though I added some mass to the top of the head, Radical Pro no mods and still was kinda stiff and rigid. I think the wave distribution is actually a bit different. Maybe Elevate Tour slightly lower swing wave, but they are quite comparable. So both rackets, I would say, are more classic than modern. They have some modern solutions. With the Radical Pro, I would say it's mainly about the flex style. So you have this thin beam, but the response is kind of stiffer, despite the frame being on a softer side when you look at the numbers. But the feeling is quite opposite, I would say. Not in the direction of bubble frames, but still stiffer than the typical player would play with this kind of setup. We are talking about the blades, the prestige, the gravity, because Radical Pro is quite demanding with the specs. With such specs, heavier specs, I think head could make the frame a bit more softer with better pocketing. Elevate Tour, I think, is a bit more modern with different string patterns, 16 by 20. So in theory, Elevate Tour has more strings, should feel stiffer, but I found actually the opposite. Elevate Tour gives me more spin potential, mainly because the mains are spread a bit wider and you get this extra cross to limit the explosiveness or spin. However, the stiffness of the Elevate of like 67 brings back this explosiveness, so it's quite an interesting mix of everything in one pot. Radical, I think, is a bit more consistent, let's say, in the design, so it doesn't take all the solutions from different kind of rackets. It's much more simple, maybe slightly more consistent in response, because in the Elevate Tour the gap between the mains is a bit bigger, so obviously you get more forgiveness, more spin, but less consistent response. It's always something for something. How far you can go in power and spin department before you lose all the control, touch, feel, whatever, confidence, right? So yeah, speed goes to Elevate Tour, spin goes to Elevate Tour, feel goes to Elevate Tour. Despite the stiffness, it is foam filled, so I felt actually much better with the Elevate Tour. Radical Pro feels kinda empty, kinda stiff, kinda hollow. Totally different to what I was expecting. I was expecting a heavier, more control-oriented version of the Radical MP. It felt like a different frame, different design. One thing I would say suits the Radical Pro is that I think it kind of aligns good in the Radical family, meaning it should give a bit more power, a bit more spin compared to the Prestige line. One frame also comes to my head when I talk about the Radical family. It is Angel TC97. It has similar flex style, totally different to Prestige or Gravity, even Speed Pro. Elevate Tour also has this flex style, but maybe because of the foam inside the racket, it kind of brings back the racket from this territory and push it slightly towards, let's say, Angel TC95, maybe Yonex Percept 97. However, Percept line in general also has a bit of this stiffness when it comes to the response. It's not a battery frame if we want to compare it to Prestige or Gravity line. So Percept also has this a little bit, but in a much more control-oriented package. So yeah, but we'll get to the Percept, no worries. Stability and forgiveness, quite similar. I had to add some mass to the Elevate Tour to make it more stable and suit my swing style. Radical Pro, I had no issues with the stability, I would say. I play on clay, so it's a bit different, I know. But the sweet spot is actually quite small. I wouldn't say Elevate Tour has a big sweet spot as well. So those two things are, I would say, in common. Flex style similar, power level, yeah, similar. I would say with the Elevate Tour I can get away a bit easier with some tricky shots, tricky positions, tricky situations, mainly because the launch angle is a bit higher above the net from the Elevate Tour, but I also experience a bit more spin potential from the Elevate Tour. So yeah, I think this time we have a clear winner here. I'm going with the Elevate Tour. Yeah, I had similar issues, but with the foam inside and a wider string pattern, with this one extra cross string, it kinda gave me more confidence and even some help on defense. So yeah. So to summarize, I would say that Radical kinda lacks this factor of excitement when you first hold the racket. When you're discovering it for the first time, I would say it suits flat hitters a bit better because it's not a spin-oriented racket. It kind of has a bit more power when you hit flat, but at the same time, I would say Speed Pro should perform better for those type of players. And if you are looking for a bit more control, then you're entering the Prestige territory. If you're looking for a bit more spin, you're entering Extreme line. So yeah, it kind of is in the middle of all the lines, but at the same time doesn't shine in any territory. It's hard to pick it over some other frames, other top heavier frames from each segment of rackets in Head's catalog. Regarding strings, I tried RPM Blast and Solinco Turbite Soft in the Radical, so I gave it a fair chance, I would say. Turbite performed better, gave me a bit more spin and security. Elevate Tour kind of feels like upgraded Radical Pro. It gives more spin, more comfort, more pocketing, but still gives a bit more power than the Prestige or Gravity line. Potential switch to every Radical Pro users. Even the Vcore 95 users could be interested in the Elevate Tour because it has similar solutions with the same string pattern, and the spin potential and the launch is quite similar, but at the same time the head size is a bit bigger than the 95, so you get a bit more forgiveness, which is always a good thing, given you don't go too far into the forgiveness territory, creating a racket that lacks feel. But yeah, Elevate Tour with foam injected plays more like a traditional racket, feels more like a traditional racket, but gives this lounge and some extra lift over the net with nice spin, nice kick. I would say Elevate Tour is a bit more complete and offers more in the same package of weight. So guys, I think that's it for the review. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you can, and let's see which racket or rackets will be next. See ya guys, bye bye.